Hey all, it's your girl Alex. God, that felt unnatural. I don't really know how to do YouTube introductions. Hi all, it's Alexandra here, coming from my studio. Today I thought I would shoot you through my first sew along, which I have done a few over on the blog, but I thought filming one might be a hell of a lot easier. So we're going to give it a go. Today I'm going to do the crease backpack, and we're going to upcycle it and rework it from this, a menswear shirt. It's going to need to be a large shirt so that you've got enough fabric, but you could always mix and match. You can always do two shirts and bring them into one, and you can really have creative liberation with this design, and you become the designer with it. No two backpacks are ever the same, which is why I love this pattern. I'm also going to try and do a voiceover for this. I reckon you're going to have to prepare yourself to hear my phone voice. So yeah, we're going to see how this editing style goes. But jump on in, guys, and come and join me. Let's go. Testing, 1, 2, 3. I have no idea how to use this. I'm sure I'll figure it out. First things first then, guys, you're going to have to go get the pattern, head on over to digitalpatternlibrary.com, and you'll be able to get the crease backpack pattern. We're going to start by deconstructing our chosen shirt. Now, you don't have to unpick the seams, that's the beauty of this. We can just cut carefully and closely up the side seams, around the armhole, around the collar, and just make sure that you have each piece carefully cut out. Cut off the cuffs, but you don't have to go crazy and unpick every single detail. At the moment in time, we want to leave the yoke on, we want to leave the button stands on, and we want to leave the plackets on the sleeves. Give everything a really good press, and then we're going to start to place our pattern pieces. Now, when you place the pattern pieces, just make sure that you're conscious of the original features. You don't want to cut through a pocket or anything like that. You can see here that I'm just laying it over so that the pocket is, number one, facing up the right way on the pattern piece towards the top of the bag, and number two, it doesn't inflict on the button stand when we try to cut that out. So you can see here what that looks like. Make sure you're marking on all of your tailor tacks. There's also another really good method I use, which is the cheats method, and I just poke some pins through and then I mark with tailor's chalk where they are. Now, we should have interfaced our backpack flaps. We're going to place those right sides together and we're going to pin them before sewing around the edge, making sure you leave the top edge open to bag that out. I made sure on this design to keep the sleeve placket as a feature, which you'll see in a bit. You're going to notch around the curves. We're then going to bag this out. Now, notching makes sure our curved corners are nice and neat before edge stitching and making everything flat. This is my nice artistic shot before I realised you couldn't see the edge stitching because I've colour matched the thread. So I'm now measuring my collar as a carry handle against the top of the backpack flap, and I'm cutting it to size. You can experiment with proportions on this and really make the backpack your own. I chose to finish my carry handle with bias binding I already had in my stash, but you can totally make some out of the scraps left over from the shirt. The next bit might be the trickiest bit of making the backpack, guys, but bear with me. Okay, so we should have had some fabric left over on the edge of each button stand, and we're going to try and neaten it off. On this button part of the button stand, I am double rolling it, almost like a double rolled hem, and on this part of the button stand, you can see there's already a lip. I didn't have much space after cutting out next to that pocket, so I have a little bit of excess here that I plan on tucking under, covering with that lip and neatening off on the machine. You're going to see me do this at the machine, but by all means press it with an iron, make sure you're confident and take your time. I was probably at the sewing machine for a good 5 minutes doing this, and the magic of YouTube has me speeding up the clip. So I wish all sewing projects flew by this quickly. But yeah, just neaten it off, find a way. You might even be able to use your bias binding again. Felt like a beauty guru holding it up to the camera like that. There's so many ways and techniques to do it, and then it'll look beautifully neat from both sides. And now you can see I'm just double rolling the button side of the button stand and just neatening that off as well. Next up, we're going to cut halfway across our button stands. Make sure it's equidistant between both buttons and both buttonholes. You're going to end up with 2 shorter pieces and 2 longer pieces. This is totally normal. I'm just measuring the width of the shorter pieces, and I'm also going to measure the difference in length between their counterpart. We're then going to make an extension using scrap fabric left over from the shirt, and you're going to measure out those measurements. You're going to do double the width plus seam allowance and the appropriate length. I'll make sure that my measurements are up there on the screen. Then we need to interface it, get some iron-on fusible interfacing, and turn in your seam allowance across both long edges and 1 short edge, pinning to your shorter strap like so, sewing down the short edge, pulling right sides out, folding over, and then edge stitching in place. This is it, guys. This is the hardest part of the whole thing. We've gotten over it, and now it's on to the good stuff. Excuse me while I do some dad dancing with my hands. Your pieces should now all be the exact same length with your little added extensions on 2 of the straps, and your buttons and buttonholes should align horizontally if you line them up together. We're going to neaten off the open edges now. I'm choosing to do this with bias tape, but you can just roll it like I just showed. Match your straps between the notches on your bag flap, and you're also going to place your collar carry handle in the middle as well, and pin everything in place before basting along the edge. We're now going to take one of our back panels, one of the bigger panels, and we're going to align the backpack flap, try saying that 3 times fast, between the markings, between your tailor tacks. Sew this in place with no more than a 0.5 centimetre allowance before pressing your flap over in the right direction. We're then going to sew it again, trapping in that seam and excess so that it is nice and neat when you lift the flap up. You can do 2 rows of stitching like I've done there, or get creative and do a funky top stitching design. Now we're going to place our button straps on the lower half of the back panel, and then we're going to secure them in place with a box of stitching. You can again get a bit creative with the design. You could do it in a contrast colour. I'm just doing a plain Jane for this one, I'm afraid, guys. And secure them in place and play around with the functionality of your new adjustable straps, and that also keeps them out of the way. We're now going to do the flat felled seams. Place your back panel to your side panel wrong sides together, and we're going to sew down a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance. Now I like to roll my seams to the back of the backpack, so I need to trim away the excess on the back panel. Once you've done this, head over to the iron and press the seam allowance towards you so that the shorter seam allowance that you've just trimmed is facing you. Watch me do this wrong, watch me not even turn the iron on, and watch me reattempt the right way. You're then going to fold the longer edge of your seam allowance up towards the line of stitching, and you're going to press that down. Careful not to burn your fingers at this point, and just take your time. Once that's done, roll it again to enclose all the raw edges. Again, this is kind of like a double rolled hem. There's a lot of that going on in this pattern. And just press that down as well. You can pin it if you want to. Here's my dramatic zoom in to show you the process and what it should look like. I myself just make sure I give it a really good press and do it at the machine, as you'll see here. Now when you do flat felled seams at a sharp corner like there are on this backpack, don't try to do them continuously. Instead, do the longer edge followed by the short edge. As you can see here, I sewed the 1.5 centimeter seam allowance at the machine straight after I did the long edge. And then I just repeated the process, but I used a sleeve roll to really try and get into the corners. It's super important that you trim the same seam allowance away. So if you've trimmed the back panel, then trim that again on the short edge, because you need to make sure that your seams all roll in the same direction. Top tip. Things can get a little bit fiddly, but you'll be really proud of yourself once you develop these skills. You can see on the machine, I just take my time and I work it into the corner, bunching up the bag as I can where I go. Repeat that process around all 4 panels, and you're gonna have the base of your bag, and your backpack will have really taken shape. Best of luck with this bit, guys. We're on the home stretch. So now we're going to fold down the facing. We're going to turn it over by 1 centimeter and then by 3 centimeters as marked on the pattern. Press this with an iron, pin it in place, and then sew all the way around. Just take care not to catch your backpack flap. Seriously, say that 3 times fast. It was here I played chicken with my thread running out, but look who won. This is a bit of a sustainable tip, guys. Instead of using eyelets, you can just sew buttonholes. Now, again, you can make bias binding for the drawstring. I found this red ribbon in my box of scraps, box of tricks. I measured it against my buttonhole foot and I sewed in the right size accordingly. This is, as I say, a little bit more sustainable. You don't have tiny little plastic or metal eyelets to play around with, and it can sometimes be a bit quicker. You're going to place your drawstring central to the back of your backpack on the facing, and you're just going to secure that in place. You can always cover up that stitching with a label or a little bit of applique, and then thread it through and pull your backpack closed.
That is it, guys. Yeah, I look different day, different outro. Do you know how long it takes to create content? I didn't know what I was getting myself into with this YouTube world. 12 hours I was filming, sewing, editing, and then I did a voiceover with a fancy little microphone. So I hope you liked it. I know it was a little bit different, saying that I only have 3 videos, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But I really hope that you love this pattern as much as I do. Upcycling is something that can be so exciting, so creatively liberating. I know that we fall in between rules of being restricted by a certain garment, but that's when you can actually push yourself as a designer and create something really exciting and unique. So if this is your first time upcycling anything, please give the crease backpack a go. I would absolutely love to see what you do with the pattern. It's a really good way to turn maybe a sentimental garment that doesn't get much wear anymore into something that has a new lease of life. But I really hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments if you want to see more sew-alongs. I might whinge and I might moan, but secretly I really love it. So what can you complain about when you're just sewing, creating and sharing it with your community? Peace out guys, stay safe, keep creative.